Welcome to another show of Anthony T's Horror Show. I'm Anthony T. This is the last news show of 2025. Well, 2025 this year has been really kind of more of a transition year, I think. Because we haven't been doing interviews, which has been throwing this podcast off. And pretty much throwing me off my game on this podcast, literally. Because for a time there, I just did not know what I wanted to do. I didn't even know if I wanted to do podcasting anymore after that. Seriously. But I think I figured something out. I'm going to try it one more time. That'll happen in January when I do my best of list show where I bring on a guest. Then once I stop feeling comfortable doing that again by myself, I'd rather bring someone I know to do it by myself before I stop bringing guests back onto this podcast, which I plan on doing in 2026. Seriously, I plan on bringing guests, and maybe I'll do more lists too. I had fun last episode doing a list. I really had fun. It was totally different, but it was fun. Seriously. And it's something I wouldn't mind doing again. As I do have a couple of topics in my mind in which I want to do best of lists. Seriously. So, I might do it again next year. More than once. So, that's something I can do next year. Maybe look for people to bring on. Bring people from other podcasts. Hopefully, network. And do all that stuff. I like doing it for once. It was the best for the show. I liked it. It was fun. So that's something you might want to look out for next year in this podcast. But the other side, but you know what that means? That means we get 2 segments of news. I have a list of topics I need to get off my chest, but I haven't done news in a while. So I will do news for 2 segments. Then the main topic on the podcast is why I think the Lionsgate's The Strangers trilogy may be the worst horror trilogy in the history of horror, and we still haven't had that 3rd film released yet. And it's already the worst trilogy in the history of horror. It just is. It's seriously. And I'll lay a case. Seriously. Because I got data that it would probably suggest that. Seriously. Because I was getting data for this segment, because that is what I think you have to figure in when you determine what is the best horror trilogies. Because you normally get 3 films if the first 2 films do great. But this trilogy was set as a trilogy of films. And the fact that the box office numbers don't look anywhere like it's good, plus from what I'm hearing about the films isn't good, I have made that judgment that The Strangers Lionsgate trilogy is the worst horror trilogy in the history of horror. Seriously. I'll go more into that when we get there in the main segment, but it is. Seriously. But I digress. And in What's Anthony T Watching, I will be reviewing a film that is a sequel to a cult classic that was released 40 plus years ago. That's right, it took 40 plus years to get a sequel. And it's a totally different film than the first film, by the looks of it. I'll get to that film in What's Anthony T Watching, but first the news. Well, I got a lot of news, so I don't know where to start. Should I start off with some exciting TV news? Or should I get into the movie news right away? As I really gotta think about it seriously, because literally there's some really good movie news, and there's an exciting piece of TV news that I want to get off my chest. Seriously, so let me think about it. Should I start with TV news or movie news? You know what? I'll start off with TV news because, well, let me put it to you this way. It's about time. That's right. FX recently renewed Alien Earth for a season 2. I really don't know how a no-brainer took forever in a day to get a season 2 renewal like that. It's not like the show is drawing people in. The show is really drawing people in. Fans of the Alien franchise are really loving it. I really just don't get FX waiting and waiting and waiting since the season 1 finale to finally renew it, because once you start waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, you have this feeling they're going to pull the plug on the series. And if they've pulled the plug on Alien Earth this early, it would have been disastrous, seriously. Because you ended season 1 with a cliffhanger. You had a sure thing on FX going right now. And literally, it was very entertaining. It would have been one of those Chucky situations where show's really good, ends on a cliffhanger. I don't like shows ending on cliffhangers, everyone. Seriously. Because networks just don't want to renew stuff because of budgetary reasons and that stuff. If you're going to do that, let the showrunners know. Seriously. So we can get a complete resolution to the story. I know Alien Earth is a very complex series, but it was one of the most surprising things of this year. Seriously. Because I never thought an Alien series on television would work. And now you get all these other horror franchises coming out with TV series. You got the upcoming Jason series coming out. I've heard rumblings here and there of a Halloween series, which I'm hoping is not true. Seriously. Because I really don't want to see that. I don't think that would work, quite frankly. You currently have an It prequel series on HBO Max that's doing very well, to the point where the show's creators are already starting to think of an endgame to the series. And quite frankly, I kind of like that endgame. Seriously. You're not going to do 10 million seasons of the show. You just can't. But if you do 3 seasons of that, that's good enough. Seriously. But anyway, back to Alien Earth. I don't know why this took so long to get renewed. Seriously. This is such a great show. It's written very well. The acting's very good and everything. Seriously. And I think maybe some of it had to do with Noah Hawley inking a new deal with FX and Disney Entertainment Television. Because literally, if you don't have him doing this series, I don't think this series works at all. He just does such a great job with this show. He gets the mythology of the Alien franchise the same way as the director and writer did with Alien Romulus. I like the fact that this show is continuing, because this show is a very good show. It has great lead performances. It has great action. And the alien creatures look very good, like the original films, which is a plus. So, I'm not surprised it got renewed. I'm just shocked it took so long for FX to realize they needed to renew this series. Seriously. Because literally, this is probably one of those productions that probably takes a long time for pre-production before they can get to filming. Seriously. Because you gotta figure in alien effects, all that stuff, plus the screenwriting. And the episode count, I had no problem with season 1 with, I think, 8 episodes. That's fine. Because I don't mind having a show that has 8 episodes. If they're all good, I'd rather have that amount next season too. Because I'd rather have quality over quantity. I've seen that with many shows, i.e. The Walking Dead, where it just felt like it was going on forever, and I felt like that show should have stopped like 3-4 seasons before it actually ended, because I was pretty much lost interest in it. Seriously. After a while, you keep doing the same thing. But I like the fact that They have a strict episode count, and I have a feeling I'll probably get like 6 to 8 episodes for season 2, which is fine. I'd rather have that, and I'd rather have the quality be great than the quantity. As for a timetable for season 2, no idea. But it is great that we are getting season 2 of Alien Earth, as it's just about time. Literally. What took ever so long? Seriously. Moving on. Now, should I really get to this story in which I really need to get off my chest? It's film news, seriously. As this is something that I don't believe is happening. Seriously. And yes, we all know what it is. Lazy filmmaking with intellectual properties in the public domain. Should I get to this now or later? I might need some time on this rant, so you know what? I'll table that to next segment. As I'll stay with television here and file this under please do not do this. Seriously. I don't like 3D television at all, especially when it pertains to a horror property. According to Variety, they have learned that Meta is teaming up with XRTV, which is a new immersive storytelling venture from the founders of Crep TV, for a Talk to Me spin-off series coming in Immerse 3D from Meta, who you might know owns Facebook as well. Really? Seriously? You gotta be kidding me. We're now doing 3D TV series as well, and to use a horror property that's only exclusive to Meta, which I have no idea what that is, seriously. It's bad enough the way we consume movies are being changed rapidly. Now we're gonna have TV series change rapidly in the way we consume as well? I'm sorry. I'm more the traditional guy. Put it on a streaming network, that's fine. Put it on network TV or cable TV, that's fine. But to put it on something like Meta, in which not many people have, is kind of ridiculous. But anyway, the series is being created exclusively for Meta headsets and shot fully in 3D. There'll be 6 half-hour episodes, and the creators of Talk to Me, Danny and Michael Philippou, will be co-executive producers on this series, as it's being described according to the article as Euphoria with Possession. It will follow a group of young travelers chasing the ultimate party on a European island until they discover the hand, a supernatural high deadlier than any drug. So basically, pretty much the same premise as Talk to Me, I think. I could be wrong. But still, I don't know why we need to put this on a platform where you need headsets in order to experience the show. Seriously. Just put it on regular TV so everyone can see it. I'm not going to go rushing to buy one of these Meta headsets because, to me, I think it's a waste of money. Literally. And the fact is, it's not going to take off. I don't see it taking off. They're trying to make the future of TV 3D. I just don't see it. Seriously. I just don't see it in my lifetime. Literally. The fact that you could wear a headset every time you watch a movie. I don't want to wear a headset every time I watch a TV show or a movie. Seriously. If this came out in 2D and on some streaming service, I would definitely be up for checking this out. But I'm not going to go out my way to buy a Meta headset in order to watch this show. I'm sorry. It's ridiculous. I don't like the way that the mediums are changing. Literally. It takes away from everything. It just does. I don't want to hear people's short attention span or the fact that they need something to keep their eyes glued. I'm more of a traditionalist in the way I consume my media. And it'll always be that way. No ifs, ands, or buts. I may eventually cave in and get a 4K TV one of these days. Even though I don't think they're much different than a regular TV. But I may cave into that. But I'm definitely not caving into one of those Meta headsets or any other technology which requires you to wear something. I respect the Philippou brothers for trying this. Seriously. But this whole thing with Meta and headsets is not for me. Seriously. But then again, I'm from the 90s. So I tend to be a traditionalist when it comes to the way I consume my media. I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, I'll have some movie news that I have some thoughts on. Including, yes, the one I teased about. We're getting another horror film based on a character in the public domain. And you know I hate those films. But this might have gotten my interest somewhat. I'll explain on the other side. Every day there's a family struggling with hospital bills to care for their sick child who is fighting an illness. There's a woman who is fighting breast cancer and is having trouble making ends meet while paying for their treatment. And there are burn victims that are going through treatments to heal their deep wounds. There is a charity in the horror community that helps these people. Scares That Care is an organization that helps families deal with the bills for their child. They help women get the treatment they need to fight breast cancer, and they help people who are dealing with severe burns get the help they need to heal. Scares That Care is a 100% volunteer organization and 501c3 nonprofit charity that is dedicated to helping these people in fighting real monsters. To find out more information or to donate to Scares That Care, you can go to www.scaresthatcare.org. Every donation helps Scares That Care fight real monsters. Welcome back. Now, I told you that I had a story in which we are getting another horror film from the public domain. That's right. Another character from the public domain is going to have a horror film. It's bad enough we got all these other ones as is. Like Mickey Mouse, Winnie the Pooh, Cinderella, to name a few. Popeye, recently. Forgot about him. Now we got Betty Boop. And yes, we have that film coming down the pipelines, as the film is being introduced to buyers at the American film market, according to Variety. The title of the film will be called Boop, and it's being described as a reimagining of the 1930s cartoon icon Betty Boop, but told through a genre lens. Now, the plot synopsis for this film is about a team of horror podcast investigators break into an abandoned theater to discover the hauntings of the Scarlett, once known as Boop. A simple investigation turns into a horrific bloodbath as they fight to escape the murderous Boop as she's out for revenge. Now, the film's set to star Davini Penn, who people might know directed The Black Mass, I believe I like to say last year. And that is a very good film, The Black Mass. If you have not seen The Black Mass, check the film out, as she did a great job directing that film. But for Boop, she is starring in the film. And it's also going to star Eva Hamilton and Colton Tran as well. I don't know what I think about this, seriously. It's just like we're getting way too many of these public domain horror films. Seriously. They're plucking characters out of the public domain. And yes, it's starting to become redundant now. I've always referred to that as lazy filmmaking, as I really believe you need to come up with a very good idea. Because if you come up with a very good idea, you will get noticed. Whether it's on the festival circuit, or get some eyeballs to the film. Whether it's VOD, Blu-ray. And there's also the way you promote the film, too, that makes those low-budget independent films succeed. But for the life of me, I just can't stand all of these public domain characters that were cartoons back in the early 1900s turn into horror films. Seriously, I just can't. It's just something I can never stand. It's bad enough I'm always seeing David Howard Thornton's films in which he plays characters based on the public domain. But then again, that's David Howard Thornton. He's very good at what he does. So I don't mind seeing those, but I feel like there's getting to be way too many of these films. Seriously. I just wish there was more originality. You can do it, you independent filmmakers. Be original. I will support your film if you have a good trailer, a good concept, and a good marketing campaign. You'll get me excited for your film. But it feels like lazy filmmaking, literally. As it just is. Seriously. No ifs, ands, or buts. I wish there were more filmmakers that did not take this route. Seriously. Make your own film. Establish who you are. I'd rather respect a filmmaker who fails on an original idea than a filmmaker that are plucking these public domain characters and making films with these characters. They're not original. Seriously. There's no respect in that. Seriously. As a film lover. As someone who loves cinema as a whole. Because some of the great horror films have come from original ideas. But there really isn't a need for any more of these public domain characters being turned into horror films. It's like every time a popular cartoon character enters the public domain, we get a horror film based on it. And this is definitely the case with Betty Boop, as she will be entering the public domain soon. So this is why they can make this film, literally. But I don't want to see these films. I just want to see originality. Please come up with some originality. People, I'd rather have that than characters plucked from a Saturday morning cartoon. As the characters that are most horrifying are the ones that are original. I'm just saying, enough's enough. Even though the teaser images look interesting for Boop, will I check it out? Maybe. Maybe not. It depends. Probably will depend if I can get it free on streaming. Because literally, I'm one of those people that literally does not spend any money on these films. Because I really think it's ridiculous. Seriously. I just want originality. Come on. These independent filmmakers can be better than this. Seriously. Next story. Moving on. Let's talk about the most talked about topic in the podcast. Wait for it. Jason Blum in Blumhouse Productions. As yes, they are moving forward with another Exorcist film. As this film will not be directed by David Gordon Green, thankfully. Because we've known what happened with the last two Blumhouse films David Gordon Green directed. They weren't too good, apparently. One I saw, which really was probably one of the worst, if not the worst, entry in the Halloween franchise with Halloween Ends. You know, the one with old man Michael Myers getting his mask taken off by some other character that we never heard of until that film. And we also had his own Exorcist film that really failed at the box office to the point that, well, Jason Blum did not want David Gordon Green near it anymore. Seriously. In fact, I don't think David Gordon Green should do a horror film in the immediate future. Seriously. Not after the last 2 horror films he's done. But anyway, the new Exorcist film is supposed to be directed by Mike Flanagan, who you may know from various Netflix projects and a film called Hush and Dr. Sleep. So you got that going. A guy who can write and do credible work. And you now have a star attached to it. And it's a big name. Seriously. Jason Blum actually got a big name for one of his films. And the big name that he got is none other than actress Scarlett Johansson, who was recently seen in the new Jurassic Park film that came out earlier this year and did well at the box office. So, this is a big get for Jason Blum and Blumhouse Productions, seriously. As the new Exorcist film is set to be produced by Blumhouse, Atomic Monster, Morgan's Creek, and Universal. All this according to Deadline article. This might also be a sign that Universal Studios is getting involved with this film. Because usually with Blumhouse Productions, you very rarely see Universal Studios get involved. It just doesn't feel like it, that they get involved with these films that Jason Blum produces. Because a lot of these films usually are okay. Some of them are low budgeted films. But I really think Universal Pictures is really going to put a big emphasis on this film. Literally. As if they're getting Scarlett Johansson to star in this film for Blumhouse Productions, then it has to be a big deal. Seriously. And it's also good for, I think, Blumhouse Productions that finally maybe Universal Studios is finally going to step in and help them out for once. Because this has not been a stellar year for Blumhouse Productions, seriously. With the exception of The Black Phone 2, and not sure what's going to happen with Five Nights at Freddy 2, because as I record that film has not come out yet. It hasn't been a good year for them. They have 1 hit, possibly 2, if Five Nights at Freddy's 2 does well. Seriously. If that film does well, then that back half year for Blumhouse was good. And they get momentum going into 2026. And with this new Exorcism film, that's probably going to be out in 2026. They're going to have momentum going into that film. Barring another Wolfman-like disaster, they will be going into 2026 quite possibly with some momentum, which I did not think they would be going into. Considering the year they've been having, considering that The Black Phone 2 literally was a sequel I didn't think we needed, quite frankly, but the trailer showed otherwise, that we needed a sequel to this. Because let's face it, I was not a fan of the announcement of The Black Phone 2. Because literally, I didn't know what you could do after that first film. But Scott Dickerson managed to pull a rabbit out of his hat and did it. Because now it's leaving you wanting more. And I'll probably not second guess Scott Dickerson, as he's probably going to make a third Black Phone film. Because at this point, you're going to get a third Black Phone film, because that's doing very well at the box office. In fact, that might be Blumhouse's best title this year. Which is surprising, literally. Considering going into this year, you would have thought maybe Five Nights at Freddy 2, even though that has not come out yet, so we cannot judge that film. But we can definitely judge the failure of Megan 2, that's for sure. Because that was a complete failure. I don't know why that film was out in the summertime. Seriously. That should have been a January release if it was that bad. They wanted to try something ballsy. You do that in January. Not when you have Superman, Jurassic World, and all these heavyweight blockbuster films out there in the marketplace. You just don't. But still, it's just amazing that we are getting another Exorcist film after that failure. But at least Universal Pictures is taking control of this one. Thankfully. Because if we let Jason Blum take control of the next one, I'm sure we would have had David Gordon Green again. And it had a low-budget film. It does show faith that Universal has faith in the Exorcist property. Even though there has not been a good Exorcist film since the first one. It'll be interesting to see if this one is good. From a curiosity standpoint, given the fact that the studio has taken control of the property. And with that, that's the news.
Welcome to Dark Discussions, your place for the discussion of horror film, fiction, and all that's fantastic. A weekly podcast where the discussion is about the most recent horror and genre films. Intelligent talk on a genre that deserves intelligence. A conversation between co-hosts discussing not only the film, but also the connotation that the directors and screenwriters are trying to articulate. When you want more than a review, listen to Dark Discussions.
And speaking of perception, there's just one more scene I want to talk about, which is after Caleb discovers that Kyoto's a robot. Kyoto kind of peels off her skin, showing him what's underneath.
Now, wait a minute. I know where you're going with this, but tell me you weren't already thinking this 15 minutes earlier in the film. Exactly what he's thinking at that moment.
Which is he's a robot, too.
Oh, I considered the possibility.
Right, and that's what I like, is the fact that the writers were smart enough to know that this is what the audience would be thinking.
We've all seen Blade Runner.
Right, exactly.
www.darkdiscussions.com, wherever podcasts are found.
Welcome back. I told you I would get to this one next episode, and I finally have time to do it. Me talking about the worst horror trilogy of all time. Sure, I have not seen a movie of it because, well, there is no point to this trilogy. Seriously. But I have to talk about it on this podcast because this is a horror podcast. And the fact that its second film nosedived to the point where you don't get a third film. But good old Lionsgate felt that we all needed a horror trilogy that was shot back to back to back. That's right, 3 films all shot in one setting to give us the complete trilogy of The Strangers. What the hell are you talking about? Seriously? I can't remember The Strangers having one continuous story through 3 films. Seriously. The first 2 Stranger films, back when Universal had the Strangers property, in which they released 2 films, The Strangers and The Strangers Pray at Night. The first one was meh. Second one was really good. No one really saw that film, probably because some of the people really did not like the first one. But the second one was totally different from the first one. And quite frankly, probably earned a sequel at least, since you're doing these films at like at $8 million a clip, around that budget, literally. It's more like low risk, high reward. Look at what Universal's been doing lately with Blumhouse with the Black Phone. It really got Blumhouse Pictures out of a really bad slump. with these low-risk, high-reward films, as Blumhouse is really taking a beating along with Universal Pictures this year on these horror films until the Black Phone came around. That I had to figure was probably budgeted around under $20 million. It would not surprise me if that was the case. But anyway, back to the Strangers trilogy. This is basically the worst horror trilogy of all time. And we haven't even gotten to the third film yet. The Strangers Chapter 1, of course, made $35 million in the US with a $48 million worldwide total. Well, tons of people hated the film. This is why you don't make 3 films back to back to back. Because Strangers Chapter 2, you have $15.1 million in the US, $21.4 million worldwide. That means it only made $6.3 million worldwide for that $21.4 million total. First of all, the first film did not do too well worldwide, as it made $12.9 million, but it lost over half. And in the US, it lost even more. Literally. This is why you don't make films back to back to back. You're right now at a grand total of $69.5 million for the series. That may be just over the 2.5 multiplier that you need to make a profit. This series ain't going to make much of a profit. I can tell you this right now. Going into the third film, if we're even in the profit stages here, we may still be in the red for all we know. Depending on reshoots and all that stuff for the second one, because that took forever and a day to get out. As I had to assume Lionsgate had to retool some of that after the way fans responded to the first film. Well, they didn't respond well to this film neither, apparently. Because there was no word of mouth and the critics hated it. And it's, of course, directed by a guy who has killed a studio. That's right, I'm talking about Rennie Holland. This is a guy who is responsible for one of the biggest bombs in Hollywood history. Back in 1995, he had a film called Cutthroat Island that came out in theaters. This film bankrupted a studio. You want to know why? Because this film cost $100 million to make. At that time, $100 million might as well have been $200 million today. Literally. That's how big $100 million was in 1994, 1995 to make a movie. And guess how much the film made? Wait for it. Wait for it. $10 million. A mere $10 million. It is one of the biggest box office bombs in the history of cinema, and it bankrupted a studio, Carolco Pictures, which library is ironically owned by Lionsgate, with the exception of a couple of things, which is owned by other companies, as they've also done productions with other studios too. Like, for example, they don't own Stargate, Lionsgate. Lionsgate doesn't own Cliffhanger. So those 2 films they don't own. But everything else they own for theatrical and home video distribution. Another Lionsgate connection here, everyone. Just I thought I'd throw that out there. But anything, we're getting off topic here. Rennie Holland's direction, from what I heard, has been awful. And I'm thankful I have not seen any of these films. Thankfully, I've turned to other reviewers online before I even thought about seeing this film. Literally. Because literally, there is no reason to see these films. It just isn't. Seriously. It looks horrible. And if you look at the numbers, right now, the Strangers Trilogy has made $30.3 million and $69.5 million worldwide. As we go back to these numbers. Now, here are the numbers for The Strangers and The Strangers Pray at Night together. Those two films grossed $77 million in the U.S. and $113.5 million worldwide. Well, it's safe to say this trilogy of films will get nowhere past the total of the original Strangers films. Seriously. In theaters. I don't know what it's making on VOD. Seriously, since I don't have VOD numbers. And so I'm really doubting it's making any really good money on VOD as well. If it's not even making money in theaters, I sure as hell not making as much money on VOD. Literally. Probably less. It wouldn't surprise me. Seriously, it would not surprise me if it was making less. It may have hit the 2.5 multiplier with these films. But when you average these films out, by their budget, they're like $8.5 million per film. Each of the 3 chapters of the Strangers trilogy from Lionsgate. And literally, I know chapter 2 did not make that multiplier. It came close, but it didn't. With 8.5, it barely made the second multiplier. It just did not make the half. It's probably short a couple $1 million. But still, this whole series has been bankrolled on the first film, literally. Because I don't see the third film making the total from the second film. I could really see this film under $10 million after its box office run. Seriously. If they even decide to put this one in theaters. That's how bad this film was in theaters during Halloween season. Don't forget, The Strangers Chapter 2 came out at the beginning of the Halloween season, pretty much. Off a week, but still, it was right at the beginning of the Halloween season. And audiences don't forget when they see bad films. And you have a sequel coming. Seriously. They don't. And that's why this film is failing so miserably. Chapter 2, literally. And this is why this whole 3-movie thing has been a horrific failure. Because for that thing to succeed, it had to at least outgross the original Strangers films. And it only had 2 films to do it to outgross. You probably would have to adjust those 2 a little bit for inflation and everything. But still, even without adjusting inflation, it's not going to make it. It's not going to make it to $77 million total. And it sure as bleep isn't going to make it to $113.5 million worldwide. When its worldwide box office is only at $69.5 million. It would need another 60 plus mil to do it for one more film. Meaning the US gross would have to literally carry the film. You would have to at least have $50 million on the next film to have a chance to hit the worldwide gross. And you're not going to do it because, well, the worldwide box office has resoundingly rejected this trilogy. Unlike the US audience, who gave the first film a shot, the worldwide audience just rejected it completely. And that's why this trilogy is failing. Because everything about the box office is worldwide nowadays. Because you can't have the 30 million and have a weak worldwide box office. Seriously. Let me run down the numbers of the worldwide box office because I haven't done that. Chapter 1 of The Strangers, 12.9 million. Chapter 2 of The Strangers, 6.3 million. 6.3 million. You're not going to be successful if the worldwide box office rejects the film. Seriously. And that's why I think it's the major reason why this is the worst horror trilogy in the history of horror. Seriously. Because the worldwide box office rejects this trilogy in these low numbers. While US ultimately gave the first film a chance, now they're not giving it a chance. 15 million is the bomb. Seriously. I don't care if it's 8.5 million. That's still not a profitable film. These films should be making at least 20 million each. While it may barely get to the threshold of the 2.5 multiplier to make the film profitable, it's not going to be much of a profit. Seriously. When it's not much of a profit, it might as well be a bomb. Because there's no interest. You want to know of another low-risk, high-reward film? Take a look at Black Phone 2. That film was shot for $30 million. It has made $121 million out of its $30 million budget. It's clearly cleared the 2.5 multiplier. And plus it has 71 million domestically and 50 million internationally, and those numbers are growing as it's still in theaters. Unlike The Strangers Chapter 2, which quickly ran out of theaters. That's what I mean by high risk, low reward. The Black Phone 2 probably would have needed to make $75 million for it to succeed. Sure, maybe it's a little more expensive, but this is Universal Pictures. They'll take a risk if they see if the first film did well. And by doing that, they're getting paid off again with this film. Them and Blumhouse. So, it's just the fact that The Strangers is just a disaster. Seriously. The fact that Black Phone 2 pretty much on the same budget as the whole trilogy of The Strangers is making more money than The Strangers trilogy combined is ridiculous. Seriously. So ridiculous. And they're like, what? 0.5 off? Because each film was like 8.5 million for The Strangers. It came up to, I think, around 25 25.5, around that number, I think. That's a ballpark I hear. 25.5, 27.5. I've heard. So, literally, this is why I'm saying The Strangers trilogy is the worst trilogy in horror. And it hasn't ran out its third film yet. And it's going to be the worst trilogy. No matter what. Unless somehow it does gangbusters at the box office. The third film will be dead on arrival like the second film. Literally. In fact, I could probably see that film making under $10 million. Literally. So what I'm trying to say is, I would never doom a horror franchise as one of the worst horror franchises ever. But this is like a trilogy of films that has not been right. And it hasn't gone right. Seriously. A lot of bad reviews. It got away with the first film making a lot of money. That's the only reason why they may make a small profit, because of the first film. Because that second film and their upcoming third film will probably do it no favors. And that's why I think The Strangers trilogy, directed by Rennie Holland, is the worst horror trilogy in horror. If you want to find out the latest news for Anthony T's Horror and Wrestling Show, you can follow the podcast on the Slasher app, Facebook, and Instagram at Anthony T's Horror and Wrestling. You can also listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, DocDiscussions.com, and the Film Arcade Media YouTube channel at youtube.com/FilmArcadeMedia. What's Anthony T watching this episode? Well, I told you in the beginning of the film that I would be watching a sequel to a cult classic. I also might have mentioned it was a sequel to a film that came out in the 80s. And it has a very good following. And now in 2025, we get a sequel to that film. And the sequel is not what you think. Seriously. As this sequel goes in a completely different direction. Like, to the point where it feels drastically different. Yes, I am talking about The Mutilator 2. And yes, I've been wanting to see Buddy Cooper do another film for quite a while. And I never thought I would ever get to see that chance, because The Mutilator, I think, was his only film before this film. And this is a sequel that is vastly different, to the point where it really feels like it's more, as you have a few of the original stars of The Mutilator playing themselves in this film pretty much. Now, this is a film that stars Terry Kaiser. You may know him for Weekend in Bernie's 2. You may also know him from Friday the 13th, I believe Part 7, The New Blood. And most recently, been in the Ice 9 Kills videos, A Work of Art, The Great Unknown, and The Laugh Track. So he's pretty much building a horror resume. Film also features appearances from Damian Melfi as well. He's been in such films as The Strangers, Pray at Night, Stream, and Haunt. So this was something I've been wanting to see literally ever since this film came out on the film festival circuit. As this took a while for it to come out, but we are here with The Mutilator 2. Now, here is the synopsis for the film. It was supposed to be a sequel to the cult hit slasher The Mutilator, but instead it turned into a reunion of terror. Terry Kaiser stars in this blood-soaked horror that shows how far some might go to make a killing at the box office. That's right, we are getting a commentary on filmmaking in this film. That's why I said in the beginning, this is vastly different from the first film. And I don't mind this. Seriously. I know people who saw the first Mutilator who may have never heard of it until me talking about it are going to themselves, WTF? Seriously? Why is Buddy Cooper going in this direction instead of going the traditional way and continuing from the first film? It goes to what I keep saying, that earlier on in the show, I respect filmmakers who try to do original films, especially with franchises. Seriously, I'd rather see a film from a director that has a unique idea than one of those stupid films out of the public domain. And this is what I think about Buddy Cooper in trying this way, because it's vastly different. Seriously, it caught me way off guard when I saw the trailer for it, because I was expecting totally something different. But okay, I'm on the go along because I support filmmakers that are taking major risks. And this is taking a major risk. If you're a fan of the first film, this is a major risk. Too much so that this is not being released by a major company. You would have thought this film probably would get a release from some well-known indie film distributor. But no, it's not happening. Probably because it's not what The Mutilator was, and doesn't continue the story from the first film, or set it with a new set of characters. Instead, it goes in this vastly different direction. So, what did I think of the film? I have to say, I was really kind of surprised with this film, quite frankly, literally. Because going into Mutilator 2, I was expecting another slasher-type film, like the first one, literally. As to me, the trailer felt like it was going to be like the first one. But this, for some weird reason, did not feel like the first one. And I am not knocking the film because of this. In fact, I think this is well executed. The fact that this film, I think, really plays more like a commentary on remakes, fandom, online vloggers, and filmmaking as a whole. Amidst all the horror and gore, of course. But still, you can see there are commentaries on those subjects in this film. And how a lot of it's changed from the 80s to today, literally. But Buddy Cooper really does a good job with the screenplay here. As I think he makes sure that he creates two sets of stories here. You got the cast and crew of the remake, and you also got in this other story some of the original people from the first film, as well as Terry Kaiser playing Jack Chatham, who was an actor on the original film of The Mutilator. So, I really thought Cooper really did a good job with the way he handles those scenes. He keeps this film moving along through the dialogue. It made the characters interesting. But literally, I think what really makes this film, in my opinion, are the kill scenes in this film. As this film does have a story, don't get me wrong, but this film really has some really good kill scenes, some really good special effects by Joe Castro here, as he really does a great job with the way he creates the effects for the death scenes, as they are really good. I thought they come off as very bloody, which is a really good thing, because given the fact that this film feels kind of meta on all this remake and all this filmmaking stuff, it's good to know that at least the action in this film is very good. And Cooper does a very good job directing the action as well, as the death scenes really were intense, including a couple that really were just downright horrifying. And it just worked so well with him and his special effects coordinator, Joe Castro. Both of them really do a really good job in making sure the kill scenes stand out in this film. Because literally, it needed to stand out in this film. Because if you're not someone like me who gets all of this stuff about filmmaking and all this stuff about online vlogging and the commentaries behind this, then you're not gonna get this film, literally. So you're gonna need the death scenes to really stand out in this film. And I have to say, it was a very ballsy move by Buddy Cooper to go this route with The Mutilator 2. Because he could have easily just made another copy of The Mutilator, but instead wanted to lend his voice on the current state of filmmaking as a whole, which is a very interesting choice. But for the most part, it works out very well. If there's one problem I had with this film, I felt like the ending felt too flat. I felt like the detective character played by Damian Melfi was too smart in finding the killer out very quickly. Even though I probably got a sense who the killer was in this film very quickly once the killing started. But that ending just felt flat and anticlimactic. I wish it had a climactic ending, as it would probably have made it better. But literally, I enjoyed this film. I have to say, it was not what I was expecting when I signed up for this film. I was expecting another straight-up slasher film. But instead, this feels like more of a commentary on the whole filmmaking process and what goes on in today's culture in the film world. And for that, I really kind of respect Buddy Cooper for going out on a limb here, where he could just phoned it in or made a copy of his original film, but he didn't. And that's what I think makes The Mutilator a very good film. I know this film may not be for everyone because it's too focused on all these filmmaking cliches and the state of filmmaking itself. But if you stay for the kill scenes, you will enjoy this film. As the kill scenes were definitely top notch, and it really helps make this film, even though this film has a weak ending, which I really did not like. But overall, I liked 95-98% of this film, so I'm probably going to give it 4 stars, as pretty much everything was good until the end, where the police detective was just too smart of a character, which you do not see in horror films. Maybe that's what was Cooper's intent all along, just to make him smart, because you don't see that in horror films. Seriously, you don't see smart detectives in horror films. With that, I'm giving The Mutilator 4 stars. That wraps up another edition of Anthony T's Horror Show. I want to thank you for listening to the show this year. You know this has been a rough year. Next episode is a best of episode, then the Horror Whammies, then Horror Show Awards episode, then the best of 2025 list where I'll bring a guest on. So you get 3 episodes recapping the year of 2025. With that, I want to thank you for listening. Don't forget, if you like this podcast, subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and other podcast providers that have this podcast on. The show is also available on YouTube at youtube.com/FilmArcadeMedia. You can also like the show's official Facebook page, Instagram page, and the Slasher app page at Anthony T's Horror Show. With that, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. Have a good day and support indie horror. This has been a Film Arcade Media production.